Hey everybody, Pressley Stutts here. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. The rain's finally stopped, and I just wanted to share a couple things with you today. Yesterday, I was speaking with a gentleman about my candidacy for the chairmanship of the Greenville County GOP, and as we started talking, we found out that we were both veterans, and he had served over 20 years in the Marine Corps, and I had spent 30 years in the Navy as a chaplain. As a matter of fact, it was 30 years, 7 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days, but who's counting, right? And so we created this instant bond because in my 30 years of service with the Navy, 22 of those 30 years, I was attached to the Marine Corps, as I affectionately call them, Uncle Sam's Misfit Children, USMC. And throughout our conversation, this gentleman, he said to me, he said, I've known about you, Presley, but I did not know that you were a veteran. I didn't know you'd served. And I said, well, yes, I did. And he said, I think you need to tell people a little bit about that. And, as I began to ponder on it, I thought, he's right. And so what I want to do is I just want to share with you a couple stories, if I may, about my service with the Navy, particularly with the Marine Corps. And one's a humorous story and one's a very touching story. The first story, we go all the way back to Operation Desert Storm. After several months of being in Saudi Arabia, I was with 2nd Surveillance Reconnaissance and Intelligence Group. It was called SRIG for short. We brought our guys home. And typically when the Marines come home, there's this nice 6-week period of a honeymoon as they readjust with the wife and the children. But then, unfortunately, the problems start. And so I got to my office early one morning, and there sitting in a chair waiting on me was Staff Sergeant Williamson. Now, Staff Sergeant Williamson was a Marine's Marine, a man's man. He was 6'6", chiseled, square jaw, pearly white smile, deep baritone voice. But he was sitting there in his chair fidgeting with his cover. And his lower lip started to quiver, and I saw some tears welling up in his eyes. And over the next several minutes, Staff Sergeant Williamson told me about the problems that he and his wife were having, and that she had in fact left him, gone back to Texas for a taxi cab driver. And at one point, I asked Staff Sergeant Williamson, I asked him, well, do you love her? And he said, well, sir, yes, I love her very much. I said, then you need to go get her. He said, sir, that's my problem. I'm out of leave. And I have no time off to go back and get her. I said, Staff Sergeant Williamson, you wait right here. Long story short, I went upstairs to the head shed, talked to the old man, the colonel, and I explained to him the situation and asked him if he would allow Staff Sergeant Williamson to go in the hole for 5 days of leave where he could go back and get his wife. And the colonel said, chaps, whatever you say. And he signed off on the leave papers, got a couple of other signatures. Within 15 minutes, I was back downstairs in my office with leave papers in hand. And the entire countenance of Staff Sergeant Williamson had changed from this sad puppy to this man who was just exuberantly happy. I mean, he stood erect. He had the smile, his big pearly white smile was shining in my office. And as he stood up to leave, remember, he was 6'6", I'm 5'10" on a good day, right? He put his hand on my shoulder, and he says to me, sir, you're the best effing chaplain I've ever met. And I go, whoa, what did you say? Sir, you're the best effing chaplain I've ever met. Except he didn't just use the word effing, okay? Marines, they say the real thing. And I looked at him and I said, Staff Sergeant Williamson, I guess that's a compliment, right? Oh, yes, sir. It's always a compliment, sir. And so I kind of laughed at that, but it made me smile to think that, I had the distinct privilege and honor of serving the men and women of the United States Marine Corps. And then I could be real with them, and they felt comfortable enough being real with me, and then I could get things done for them. Well, let me fast forward several years now to Operation Iraqi Freedom. It's the year 2005, and we've got men in Fallujah, and these Marines, they're kicking down doors, they're taking names, they're killing the enemy. They're freeing the Iraqi citizens. And got an urgent call from the wife of a young corporal, and I'm going to leave their name anonymous because of the situation. But she was pregnant, and she was developing some serious problems in the last week or two of her pregnancy. Long story short, we put a message in through Red Cross. We were able to get this young corporal extracted out of the country. We put him on a cargo flight back to the United States. He came home about 2 or 3 weeks earlier than what he was scheduled to be. And he got into the hospital about 4 or 5 hours before his wife gave birth to their first child. But unfortunately, due to the complications she had, the baby was born, the little boy was born stillborn. And it was a very difficult, tough time for them. And the next morning, I went back to the hospital to visit with the corporal and his wife. And they asked if they could see the baby. So I went down to the nurse's station. I told them the request. And within 30 minutes, a nurse from the morgue brought the little stillborn child up, wrapped in blankets, handed it to the little nurse. And she was quivering. She said, "Sir, I've never taken a stillborn child to the parents. I don't think I could do this. Here." And she handed this little beautifully formed and shaped baby little boy to me. I took a long walk down the corridor of the hospital. They had put this young couple down at the very end of the corridor, away from everybody else, where they could have some time to be by themselves and to grieve. And I handed them their son. They named him Matthew, by the way. And I left. And I gave them an hour and a half to be with him and to grieve. 3 days later, I'd flown to their hometown with them, and we had a funeral for their little baby boy. And as I stood there over this small white casket on a hot summer's day, I offered up the best words that I knew to provide some comfort to this young family and to their parents and their in-laws. And when the service was over, this young corporal was a man of very few words. And he walked up to me. And he didn't have any words for me. But he snapped his heels to attention. And he gave me one of the crispest, sharpest salutes a Marine could ever give. And chills ran up and down my spine. And in turn, I returned a crisp, sharp salute back to him. And it was his way of saying, "Sir, thank you for being there for me and my family." And it was my way of saying it was my privilege and my honor to serve you. Well, look, I've got hundreds of stories I could share, and I don't have all the time in the world. I want to keep this video as short as I can. But a servant's heart has been a part of me. It's a God-given gift that I've got. And I love people. I get my energy from people. I love serving people. And that's why I'm running as a candidate for the chairmanship of the Greenville County GOP. You know, a lot of people say, "Well, Pressley, you're just a rabble-rouser. You just want to create trouble." And I don't know how to answer that, because all I know to do is stand up for what's right. All I know is to do what's right. All I know what to do is call a spade a spade. And if standing up for someone and their rights is being a troublemaker and a rabble-rouser, then label me a troublemaker and a rabble-rouser. I guess that's the way it's going to be. But I just wanted to just open my heart a little bit, to give you a little peek inside of who I am, and let you know that I'm here to come lead the Greenville County GOP if I'm to be elected. I'm here to serve all of the people of the Greenville County GOP, not just some of them. I'm here to say, hey, we're a party of open doors and closed primaries, not closed doors and open primaries. And so I would really appreciate you coming out to GOP Reorg, which is going to be Monday night, March 18th at 7 p.m. For the reorg. And then 5 weeks later, April 22nd, we're going to have our county convention where you'll have an opportunity to vote for the next chairman of the GOP. I hope that you would find it in your heart to vote for me. That's all I wanted to share for right now. So I'm just going to sign off with the Marine Corps motto, Semper Fi. Thank you.